Welcome to today's episode of HR Insight, where I simplify human resource concept. I'm going to be dedicating today's episode to answer a question that was asked on a previous episode I did on performance management. And that question has to do with how do we remove subjectivity in performance management? Meaning, how are we going to be sure that performance measures would be objective? And I'm going to be answering that question after taking this video message from our sponsor of today's episode.
Ready for a 5-star performance this year? Motivate your workforce and increase employee productivity with Seamless Performance. Seamless Performance makes automating performance management so easy. So whether you use a linear or 360-degree review performance tactic, Seamless Performance helps you ensure your team is knocking out their individual and team goals to support the organization's success. Now you can track performance and share feedback based on set KPIs or OKRs, acknowledge exceptional achievements, and make informed workforce decisions from appraisal insights. Go beyond annual reviews to a system of continuous performance management. Get started with Seamless Performance.
Now, the very first place to start is to put a bit of definition to what we mean by performance measure. It's critical for you to recognize that performance measure is often referred to as key performance indicators. Yes, KPIs, key performance indicators, metrics, measures, they are all words that are often used interchangeably. So when we're talking about KPIs, metrics, measures, what should we be looking out for? A key performance indicator is something that can be counted and compared. It provides evidence of the degree to which an objective is being attained over a specific period. The key part of this definition of key performance indicator, which I'm picking as a working definition, are 1, the ability for it to be counted and compared, meaning it must be measurable. We're talking about a measurable target. Then 2, what is the evidence that it has been achieved? There must be an evidence that must be set at the point of measurement. Then there should be an objective. This should be tied to performance planning, meaning the organizational objective for the year has been defined, then cascaded to the department and cascaded to each individual jobs. That means there is a connection between the measure itself in terms of counting and comparison to be able to know what did you do last year, what are you going to do this year. Then there should be an evidence, then an objective, and a specific time. It is not going to be an objective performance measure if it is not time bound. That's very critical. Measurable and time bound. In order to set performance measures that is objective, it must meet the following measurable target criteria. What are these measurable target criteria? We start with quantity. How much? So take for example, an employee is expected to carry certain buckets of water. I'm expected to carry 4 buckets of water. So the quantity has been defined. Then you look at quality. Now, in the process of carrying the 10 buckets of water or the 4 buckets of water, am I expected to get to the end and have just half bucket? Or am I expected to have a measure of error that, okay, in the process of carrying that full bucket of water, you must make sure that 90% of the water is still in the bucket by the time you get to the end goal. So you are defining the quality. How well must the job be done? Then you also look at costs. So in the process of me carrying the bucket of water, should I go for the high cost or the reduced cost? So I must spend 10 naira per bucket of water. So what that means is that at the point of going to get the water, I must be able to check around to know what the going rate is. Then I can decide as the employee to say the target has been set around 10 naira. So that means I cannot afford to spend more than 10 naira on each bucket of water I am carrying. But if that is not defined, it's difficult to check at the end of the process of performance appraisal. Then the time, we cannot overemphasize time. So how long, at what point must each of the buckets of water be carried? I have to use a simplistic example just to drive home the point. Then what are the various examples when we're talking about performance measure? Number 1, achieve gross sales of 150 million. That's been defined in terms of the amount or the quantity that must be achieved. It's a sales figure. Achieve gross sales of 150 million. Then to make it more specific, you would add the time, maybe per quarter or per annual. Then looking at ensure staff cost does not exceed 55% of total revenue. This is a very interesting executive level performance measure, because it is being defined to say we're going to look at the staff cost as a factor of the total expenditure of the organization, and the measure here is that it must not exceed 55%. So the evidence of it exceeding is when we check the staff cost over the total expenditure and it is more than 55%, then this performance measure is not achieved. Very clear, right? Then another interesting one is maintain present market share of 15%. This means that there is a level of comparison here. That means this particular organization is currently having a market share of 15%. And the performance measure has been said that we must maintain that market share. If we do not achieve it, or if we drop in terms of market share, there's already an evidence to show. Another interesting example of performance measure is maintaining time to hire. I know this is this is an HR driven KPI, which is very useful in recruitment. Time to hire, the numbers of days between when the job requisitions was made and the individual or the applicant receiving or accepting the job offer. That's talking about the time to hire. It's been set at 30 days. What that means is that if it exceeds 30 days, there's already an evidence against, and if it is less than, it is already measurable and it is time in terms of specificity. Then achieve employee engagement index of 80%. This is already cleared out. Rather than say employee engagement, you are in charge of employee engagement. No, there needs to be a specific, a measure, a counting, a comparison, a point of objective, and a point of when I achieve it. So if I'm checking the employee engagement survey, I'm doing the employee engagement survey and it is less than 80%, then the work is not being done. Then I need to go back to the drawing board. But if it is at 80%, then there's an achievement. What you would agree with me is that this means that for you to be able to have an objective performance measure, it must be defined. It must be a measure that is counted, compared, tied to an objective, and time bound with an evidence. I want to believe that has been an enlightening one for you. If it has been, kindly click on the like button so that more individuals can get to see this episode. Thank you, and see you in the next episode.